I'm going to start this rod review by talking about a completely different rod by a different manufacturer and why it's my favourite rod ever. So over 10 years ago, we had this grand idea of heading to Exmouth, hiring a dinghy and trawling teasers around and switching sailfish on stick baits. We decided that 20 pound was going to be the best option and needed a rod to suit something like a 4,000 reel. That's when I bought this. It's a Smith offshore stick 68M. It's rated to 60 gram cast weight, and it says 16 pound line or 4 PE. 6'8" and perfect for throwing stick baits, small poppers and casting soft plastics. Now I've had this rod for over 10 years. I've taken it to the Montes, I've taken it to Fiji, I've taken it to Costa Rica. It's caught everything in that time. Red emperor, cobia, countless salmon, and it's performed flawlessly. It's the first rod I grab on any trip, and yeah, massive fan. And I guess I've been not trying to replace it, but trying to find the next rod moving forward, because I guess hopefully this will last forever, but I can just see too many times other people have grabbed it. It's been high sticked, I've high sticked, and I can see it snapping at one point and I'm gonna cry. So, I've been on the search for a PE2 rod. Most manufacturers for a topwater casting rod, their smallest or lightest rod is a PE3, which I shied away from. I run this with a Daiwa 4000 and PE2 line, and I guess I run it as, a 20 pound outfit. I'd been on the lookout for ages. One of the rods that was there to look at is the ASWB PE3. Initially, it's a bit longer. It's about 8 inches longer and it's rated to PE3. I thought it was just too heavy, not what I'm looking for. I'm not going to say I got conned into. I got convinced by Ando from ASWB just to give it a try. Grab it, see what you think. It might actually be what you're looking for. Here's the rod here. Now, I think it's worth touching on PE ratings and line class. Originally, you'd have a PE2 rod, I would sort of think that's 20 pound line. These days, you buy a PE2 line and it breaks at, 30 or 30 plus pounds. And I guess the PE ratings kind of get a bit blurred. So I guess from the beginning, I was always looking for a PE2, but in reality, I was fishing PE2 pretty hard, up around, I guess I was using 30 pound line and fishing it as a 30 pound rod. So something like a PE3 may actually fit the bill a bit better. So I've got the rod here. As I said, I'll bring it around. 7'4", PE3, 2-piece, butt join, which is what you want for a rod like this. You want to keep this section as one piece to keep your action solid and for strength. And you don't want it one piece because it's a pain in the ass to transport. 2-piece, good. Looking at the rod, we've got Fuji K guides, new guides they are supposed to minimize, I guess, guide wrapping. They work just as well for me as the single foot. Nice understated binding. It's a nice, very nice looking rod, quality components, much the same as the Smith in that regard. Both quite similar, understated components. These guides are banged up. A lot of them have been replaced. So if we go back to the line ratings, being a PE3 rod, that's the thing that put me off most. But last time I was in the Montes, I fished in the shallows with the Smith and I got absolutely blown away multiple times. It was not something that I'd really expected. I'd fished Fiji in the shallows with little bluefin, red bass and whatnot, and I'd done pretty well, including a massive long nose emperor there. But in the Monties, it just wasn't working. I'd just watch coral trout come up, slurp a stick bait, and just go down to their bommy, nothing I could do. In my head, a little bit of power, a little bit more power wouldn't go astray, but I don't want to lose, I guess, first off, my casting of the rod, and I want the rod to be light. I want to be able to use, work stick baits, walk the dog with one hand. I want a little bit of finesse. So one of the first things I did was actually measure the weight difference between them. If you're going to hold it all day, is it actually a heavier rod? So as you can see, it's barely heavier. So it's going to be no problem to work all day in the hand, twitch, no issue at all. We'll look at the length. One of the reasons I quite liked the Smith is it did double as a soft plastics rod. I'd put, a half ounce or an ounce jig head on it, and you could jig it in the bottom in 20 meters. I caught a very nice red emperor up in the Mackerel Islands doing that. 7'4", potentially not as good for that, but on the other hand, casting distance increased. If you're purely fishing topwater, then a longer rod's going to be better. Swings and roundabouts. Power-wise, this is, I guess, what I was most interested in, as well as the taper. Now the Smith, I wouldn't say it's a fast taper. It definitely folds down the butt a bit, which is, is good when you're fishing up and down. But you do lose a little bit of power when you're trying to pull things away from structure. If you look here, I'll do a deadlift test, and what you can see is actually the power difference between the two rods and also the taper. You'll see that the ASWB, the taper, it's quite fast. Once again, probably not ideal for fishing up and down, but great for keeping fish away from rocks, reef, and awesome for working lures. We've got the two rods, the ASWB and the Smith, and we're actually going to do a dead weight lift test using the water bottle over there, which has got, I guess, total 1.5 kilos. You can see there that you're already into the power. All right, so that's a lot of opinions without actually fishing with the rod. So I have had it for a couple of months now. I have done a fair bit of fishing, and to be honest, this thing is just slotted right into the arsenal. I did a lot of FADS fishing right just before winter, and took this out, did a bit of filming, and it was absolutely unreal. It's still light enough that you can move. I was using a 25 gram stick bait. Twitching it through the water is absolutely no problem. Casting it, it's rated to 30 to 50. It casts amazing. And then once you've got the fish, the regular drag that I would use on the Smith, I could crank that up a couple of turns on the Catalina, and just the power was unbelievable. It's kind of, I feel like for topwater, I've just got more power with no negatives. It's great. I'll run some of the footage here, and yeah, I had an absolute ball catching mahi on this. All right, let's give this bad boy a shot. There we go. Now we can see, I guess, the rod in action. That's a fair bit of drag just there. Oh, he's not huge. So that all said and done, how does it compare to the Smith, which is my favourite rod? Initially, I wanted to replace the Smith. I was going to put this on the wall, and I wanted something that was almost identical. That is not the case. This rod is completely different, but to be honest, it's much better suited to what I want to do. For throwing lures, fishing PE2, heavy, 30 pound, longer cast. With this, the cast weight is fine. I've got no problem working those small stick baits that you'll see. Honestly, this is the rod that I'm going to use more. It casts far, plenty of power, quality components, two-piece, light. It's just tick, 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 tick. It may not have replaced the Smith, but this is the rod that I'm going to choose to use more in the future.